This is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Gary Smith.
Welcome to BRD. And Gary, how are you today?
I'm well, sir. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. We got quite a range and breadth and depth today. We could talk NFL.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, I was thinking about Urban Meyer because we did that show with Amy and with Jimmy Neutron, and we were talking about Urban Meyer, and it reminds me one of my favorite pieces of advice to people when they're in a high profile and the microscope is on you. I always say, just keep a low profile, duck and wait 72 hours, and the next thing will come along and they'll change the focus. Sure enough, Urban did that, and along comes Gruden, and just wild.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's to say that Urban's out of the woods, because if he has lost that locker room, the only thing he can do to save his job is win, and that's not something he was able to do this past week, and I don't foresee him having a lot of success at that in the future. But you're right, the Gruden thing came out of nowhere and was a storm that happened quickly. And now you see a lot of people pointing out this was all started as an investigation into Dan Snyder, who has suffered no consequences, and here John Gruden is out of a 10-year contract.
It's astonishing when you think about NFL owners, and I, having taken their depositions and having been around the NFL. I mean, I think I've got the case right now against Denver and Juwan, and I will tell you, there's just. It never ceases to amaze me, the stranglehold that the NFL has when it comes to the owners themselves. The players and coaches and everything else is kind of disposable. But boy, the owners, they are like nothing I've ever seen. What a clearly a boys' club.
Yeah, absolutely. We could talk NFL.
We could talk NFL. Then the corner came out today on the Gabby Petito. Is that
correct?
I hope I pronounced the young lady who was named correctly. Yep. And the coroner says strangulation. And nobody has issued a warrant yet for murder on Mr. Landry.
That's peculiar to me. Do you believe that has to do with the jurisdiction issues, or?
I don't think so, because I think that the feds could get jurisdiction. They obviously already issued the warrant for the
financial crimes,
right? The debit card shenanigans, and it's surprising to me that a murder. Basically for an arrest warrant, all you need is probable cause. And given the attention and the focus on this thing, it's surprising to me that they have issued it on the debit card, but not on the homicide itself. I mean, unless there's some other piece of evidence that they're not disclosing, which could be
toxicology, possibly.
I was just kind of ruminating before he came out today and said strangulation, that potentially the toxicology was something that they were struggling with or dealing with. But when you got strangulation, that's kind of an interesting situation. I potentially, maybe one of the things that they do when they have an autopsy is try to determine a window for the time of death. And it could be that they have trouble tying him in whatever way they are going to do it, either cellular, cell phone tower triangulation, or debit card use, or something else, trying to tie him to the window of the time of death by the coroner. And I haven't seen anything where the coroner has let out the information as to the time of death, which leads me to believe that maybe there is a challenge there that they have not overcome, and could potentially be the explanation for why there is not a warrant out for murder for him.
Dog the Bounty Hunter injured his ankle, and he's bowed out of the search, so we may not find Brian Laundrie for quite some time yet.
How old is Dog the Bounty Hunter?
He's got to be in his late 60s to early 70s.
That's kind of a rigorous job, as
68.
68, yeah.
He's getting up there. But the story I think that we should talk about, at least what's been grabbing my eye for the last 24 hours, is this Southwest fiasco.
This is fascinating to me too. Can you give the rundown? Because I just caught up on it in terms of the finger pointing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were over 500 flights canceled yesterday. Southwest came out and tweeted out that it was because of the weather, and then the memes all started of the satellite imaging of the United States, where there was almost no storms, maybe one small one in dead center of the country, but almost no storms at all. So they're blaming weather, but everyone else is starting to speculate that this has to do with the upcoming mandates, and Southwest employees who are displeased with this policy are trying to take all of their PTO now, and the quiet rumblings are before they all quit.
Yeah, and I've also heard from somebody who I put some stock into for their opinion that there may be a massive work stoppage, and that they have contemplated they're taking all of the PTO now or stockpiling it for the work stoppage, not necessarily all quitting, but basically, okay, you want to do a vaccine mandate. We're gonna see who blinks first. And now you've got that against the backdrop of various states sending or out vaccination anti-mandates. It's clearly going to be a battle of the federal versus state, and you're going to see I think some interesting legal machinations in the upcoming 30 days here.
I would think so, because with the holiday travel season upon us, and now you've got the Southwest CEO coming out and saying that he advised Biden against the mandate and he was not in favor of it. I mean, I feel like this is going to come to a head with, I believe it was Texas came out and banned all vaccine mandates or vaccine requirements.
I think Governor Abbott did, who coincidentally was also, I guess there's a video going around of him today saying that he had basically outlawed abortion, or conceded or admitted it today. It's an interesting time we're living in. If you had gone back about 4 months ago, everybody was kind of heralding the present administration with great favorability numbers and things of that nature. Boy, how quickly that has changed, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It's just unraveled, and it's going to be, I agree, the next 30 days are going to be very interesting, and we'll be watching that. On to much bigger problems. Our Governor Gavin Newsom has banned the sale of gas-powered leaf blowers and lawnmowers by 2024. So
I think he's decided that he's going to draft behind Adam.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like he's decided, well, I'm probably not getting another term, so maybe I'll just poke Adam Carolla, in private. And I just won't tell anyone, but I'll just slowly see if I can drive him to, get one of his race cars and go into a pylon at 200 miles an hour.
Well, didn't he also sign a gender neutral toys in big box stores law this week as well?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Meanwhile,
people have asked me, is that legal? And I believe somebody sued on that exact issue years ago. And I think it ended up being settled. So we'll see. We'll see.
Well, the Western White House that our former president lived in Santa Barbara is in severe danger of a 6,000-acre fire that is 0% confirmed. But I'm very glad that if I go to Toys R Us, my son will have choices.
Well, as I've been saying, we live in the land of perpetual fires. Apparently, that's the new normal. The fires just burn all the time. It's just, as somebody who lives in a fire station and has the utmost regard for firefighters, I can't even imagine what these guys are going through, having to perpetually fight 5-alarm fires. It's just wild.
And I don't know how much time you've spent in the Santa Barbara, mountain area. I mean, there's nothing out there to stop it. It just, once it starts, it's on. And I can't imagine having that. Hats off to those heroes who are willing to do that job and try to keep us safe.
Yeah. And the prisoners, there's a prisoner program in California, where if you qualify for it, you get great good time, work time credits. I think all you've got to do is run an 8-minute mile. And if you can run an 8-minute mile and you meet other kinds of criteria, they're out there doing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. Anything else you want to get to, Mark?
The breaking news. You were just telling me about Rikers. Summarize that.
Unfortunately, I haven't read the entire article yet, but it seems like the LA or the New York Times rather put out an expose this morning, and it is titled "Inside Rikers: Dysfunction, Lawlessness, and Detainees in Control." With a staffing emergency disrupting the basic functions of the jail systems, detainees have had free reign inside. And from what I read, the initial anecdote they tell is of a group of 6 inmates being able to take control of a prison bus and ram it into the building 2 or 3 times. And it seems to be crazier from there. So you might have a little bit more insight. I would imagine you may have visited that institution over the course of your career.
It's a nightmare. It's
yeah.
An absolute nightmare. There's another thing that had just happened right by the office in New York City. There's a gang, apparently, that's what they're being characterized as, who started, this is something that used to happen in the 80s in Los Angeles, where they stake out restaurants, and what are called high-end restaurants. I mean, in this case, it was Philip Chow's, I think, is the one that they started with. They will wait for either diners to leave or dine outside, and it's kind of a robbery of the jewelry and the watches. And apparently they're going for the watches. You're probably too young to remember, but Rolexes were the hot item back in the 80s and early 90s in LA. And then here, they then went from Chow to, I think it was the Buddha Bar downtown. And then right by the office, Pergola, which is a Mediterranean restaurant, and apparently Taj Gibson was there that night, did the same thing, the same MO, if you believe it, by the same group of guys who have a very flashy name or acronym. And the cops ended up putting a bunch of bullets into a BMW, which was camped on Fifth Avenue all day yesterday, which when people ask me why I no longer wear a watch, it's been ever since the 80s. I just figured no amount of jewelry on me is worth having a gun placed in your head.
Yeah, very true. I believe we covered a few weeks ago that there were federal charges filed against a few gentlemen who tried that in Beverly Hills, right?
Correct. And now today, the latest article is that the police are trying to get federal charges filed in New York as well. So we'll stay tuned and we'll see and we'll cover it.
All right. Absolutely. Mark, thank you for the time. I'm sorry I didn't cover this at the top, but for those disappointed to not hear Adam, he is traveling to Nashville today. So he will be back for our big show on Saturday and possibly even our next Beyond on Thursday. We'll just see how the cards shake out.
I love it. Thanks, Gary. Always good to see you.
Thanks, Mark. My pleasure. I appreciate it. You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Beyond a Reasonable Doubt. Stay tuned for more bonus episodes coming soon.